The president thinks that there is an extremist threat to our democracy. The president has been clear as he can be on that particular piece when we talk about a democracy, when we talk about our freedoms. The way that he sees is the MAGA Republicans are the most energized part of the Republican Party. This is an extreme threat to our democracy, to our freedom, to our rights. They just don't respect the rule of law.
That was White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre in 2022. This week, she held her final press briefing, and there are plenty of people that are happy about that. To be fair, she had a tough job representing Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, especially in 2024 during their disastrous election campaigns. But Karine Jean-Pierre's performance for the cameras was hopeless. She lied to the American people just as much as her bosses.
Let me go back to the first question of the briefing. I know you said not a lot's changed since yesterday and that it's a personal matter, but from a presidential perspective, is there any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son?
No.
Well,
I just said no. I just answered. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No possibility that Joe Biden would pardon Hunter. Well, we all know how that turned out. But Karine Jean-Pierre had no issue keeping up a toxic narrative that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. And she even kept up that commentary after Donald Trump was shot in Butler, Pennsylvania.
Just to clarify, so You're saying that the president and vice president believe that former President Donald Trump should be toning down his rhetoric?
So I'll say this. President Biden has been clear-eyed about the threat that the former president represents to our democracy.
And if reporters did their job, which was to ask questions, should turn on them and label the questions that she didn't like as dangerous.
2 days since somebody allegedly tried to kill Donald Trump again. And you're here at the podium in the White House briefing room calling him a threat. How many more assassination attempts on Donald Trump until the president and the vice president and you pick a different word to describe Trump other than threat?
Peter, if anything from this administration, I actually completely disagree with the premise of your question, the question that you're asking. It is also incredibly dangerous in the way that you're asking it, because American people are watching. And to say that from an administration who has consistently condemned political violence, from an administration where the president called the former president and was thankful, grateful that he was okay, from an administration who has called out January 6th, called out the attack of Paul Pelosi, called out and said we need to lower the temperature after the Butler incident, and now for you to make that kind of comment in your question, because your question involved a comment and a statement. And, it is, that is also incredibly dangerous.
After years of covering up Joe Biden's obvious cognitive decline, she continued to lie, claiming that his mental decline had nothing to do with why he was pushed out of the race.
The president's statement where he said that it's in the country's best interest for him to step aside. Why is it in the country's best interest for him to step aside? Does it have to do with his health, or
it does not have to do? They have nothing to do with his health.
Looking at the reaction to Karine Jean-Pierre's final press briefing, it is brutal. Some social media users say that she'll go down in history as the worst press secretary by far. Another person said, let's bid a fond farewell to the worst, most divisive press secretary in American history. And another person said, I hope to never have to hear Karine Jean-Pierre's voice again. Meantime, Joe Biden has given his final Oval Office address. Comedian Alex Stein joined Power Hour for his reaction. We've just heard from outgoing President Joe Biden giving his farewell address, and he brought back this warning that essentially Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. Take a look.
Today, an oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence that literally threatens our entire democracy, our basic rights and freedoms, and a fair shot for everyone to get ahead. We see the consequences all across America, and we've seen it before.
No, it doesn't surprise me, but who believes anything he says anymore?
nobody here in America trusts Joe Biden. And I think that it's obvious that he has not been the one that's calling the shots over the past 4 years. I mean, people realize that we don't even have a president. We have a guy that pretends to be president that eats ice cream all day long. And I think America is going to be much better off without Joe Biden. But, you know, as much as we tease Joe, we know that Jill voted for Donald Trump. So even though he likes to pretend like Donald Trump is a threat, I guarantee you I would bet my bottom dollar that he did not want Kamala Harris to win. So it's kind of an unusual situation where he says one thing, but I think he means another.
It's interesting. There's been a huge vibe shift since Trump was elected in November. Mark Zuckerberg says that he believes in free speech again. Last week, he announced that Meta platforms will end fact-checking across all platforms, and they'll be replaced on Facebook, Instagram and Threads by community notes, which is similar to X, where users can actually add context to posts and vote on whether the information is helpful. But Joe Biden had another warning today, essentially about this, because, surprise, surprise, he doesn't want censorship to end. Take a look.
The free press is crumbling. Editors are disappearing. Social media is giving up on fact-checking. The truth is smothered by lies told for power and for profit. We must hold the social platforms accountable to protect our children, our families, and our very democracy from the abuse of power.
He sounds so desperate, but these comments come just a week after Mark Zuckerberg revealed on Joe Rogan that people in the Biden administration were essentially bullying Meta's staff to make sure that they were censoring the truth. Look at this.
These people from the Biden administration would call up our team and like scream at them and curse, and it's like these documents it's all kind of out there.
Oh, did you record any of those phone calls?
I don't think we but I think
I want to listen.
I mean, there are emails. the emails are published. It's all kind of out there, and they're like, and basically it just got to this point where we were like, no, we're not gonna take down things that are true. That's ridiculous.
I don't know if people really have much sympathy for Mark Zuckerberg anymore, because this should have never happened in the first place, and it's only 5 years later. Now we've got Donald Trump back, that all of a sudden Facebook believes in free speech. But what do you make of the comments from Joe Biden today? His warning that this warning about Meta not going through with its fact checking.
Well, I don't trust Mark Zuckerberg at all, not one bit. And, you know, I got a lot of strikes during the pandemic on all sorts of content on Instagram and Facebook. So, you know, I really, you know, we'll see. But when it comes to Joe Biden, and if you notice, Gavin Newsom is saying the same thing. He said there's a hurricane of misinformation and disinformation. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe these politicians are actually shaking in their boots because Mark Zuckerberg is going to allow free speech on his platform. Maybe that is the case. And maybe that's why they have an agenda right now to try to obfuscate what's actually happening in California, and Gavin Newsom blaming it on misinformation or disinformation. And that's why Joe Biden is using this topic in his farewell address, because maybe to them, this is the biggest threat. So if that's the case, then God bless Mark Zuckerberg. And I hope that is the reason why they are scared right now.
What do you make of Gavin Newsom blaming misinformation when he's really responsible for handling these fires so badly, him and LA Mayor Karen Bass?
Well, 100%. And then you talk about the fire chief. You know, a lot of people want to say, oh, DEI fire chief, and I understand that. But supposedly the fire chief asked for $100 million in repairs for fire trucks. They asked for the reservoir to be filled. So they did have, you know, recommendations to the mayor, but the mayor cut funding to it so that they could fund DEI programs that did not benefit the citizens of Los Angeles whatsoever. So for Gavin Newsom to be so afraid of the truth, it just shows you that he is guilty. But I think he's going to be able to weasel his way out of this one too. You know, people are going to say that even though tons of people lost their houses and so many people were displaced, they will try to spin this like this was a good thing, because these people do not let a disaster go to waste. So just watch and see. The narrative's going to switch very quickly, and they're going to say Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass are heroes.
Oh, no,
and
I
sadly,
can't.
I believe that.
I hope you're wrong. Really hope you're wrong.
Okay.
But look, I want to talk to you about what's happening here in Australia, which we rarely do because we've got such a big focus on world news and American news. But our Prime Minister seems to hold a similar view to Joe Biden. He's warning Elon Musk not to intervene in Australia's upcoming election. In an interview with Nine newspapers, the Prime Minister was asked about Elon Musk and his tendency to weigh in on elections. And Albanese said, "We have foreign interference laws in this country and Australian elections are a matter for Australians." I just find it so amusing that everyone is so scared of Elon Musk and platforms like X, where free speech exists. It encourages people to speak the truth.
Well, 100%. And Albo better be very careful. You know, he's speaking derogatory about an African American. And I know that that can get you canceled in this day and age. So he should try to be friends with Elon Musk and take the same route as Donald Trump, in my personal opinion. But I'm not a political expert. And to be honest, you know, I actually don't want Elon Musk. I actually kind of agree with him a little bit. You know, I don't think Elon Musk should be able to interfere, but that's not the reality in which we live in. We live in a reality where everybody's on Twitter and the guy has an immense amount of power. So instead of trying to go against him, I would try to, I guess, team up with him. And you know, I know he's an African-American living in America. I don't know how much he helps Australia, but it's better to be friends than enemies, in my personal opinion.
I know he, of course, has so much power, but I do feel like the platform has empowered people to at least say whatever they want. They can share information. They can use community notes to fact-check people like Gavin Newsom when he claims that all the reservoirs were full. The community notes were very quick to point out that that was a lie from Gavin Newsom during this wildfire crisis. But moving on to what else is happening in the United States, because First Lady Jill Biden has spoken out against former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi over her fractured relationship because President Joe Biden was pushed out of the race during the election. Now, Jill Biden told the Washington Post, "We were friends for 50 years and it was disappointing." Look, I've got no sympathy for Jill Biden because someone should have told Joe Biden to go, and it really should have been Jill. She was the person that was closest to Joe Biden, and it took so long. And then we had celebrities coming out. We had George Clooney, and then we had Nancy Pelosi finally publicly saying he's got to go.
No, I agree with you 100%. And I'm wondering why Dr. Jill Biden is so upset about this, because, you know, she wore the red on Election Day, and obviously she didn't want Kamala to win. But if she really loved her husband, she should have been the one that had him step down. You're exactly right. Like, if she really cared about him, she wouldn't have tried to put him through the torture that it is running for president in the United States in the grueling schedule. It's not easy. It's hard for a young person to do it, much less an 81-year-old man that has, you know, cognitive issues. So, yeah, I think the onus is on her to protect her husband. But she does not feel that way. She feels like everybody in Washington, D.C. backstabbed her, backstabbed her husband. And I don't know if that can ever be fixed. And I think it probably comes down to an ego thing, because really and truly, they did the right thing. Joe Biden should have stepped down, but they should have had an election and not just put Kamala Harris as the nominee, considering nobody voted for her.
Yeah, I think it was definitely an ego thing. I think Jill Biden did not want to give up that title. Look, Donald Trump is going to be sworn in just 5 days' time. And we know the Village People, known for their hit YMCA, which was a Trump favourite at Trump rallies, have announced that they'll be performing at events tied to next week's inauguration. So we're going to be seeing people busting out their best Trump dances.
Well, for sure. But you know what I just saw? I just saw on Twitter that when Joe Biden won in 2020, that over 280 bars in D.C. applied for permits to stay open late. And this year, for the Trump inauguration, only 33 bars. And then this is a place in Washington, D.C. where you realize that voted 93% for Joe Biden. So it's going to be wild. It's going to be some of the biggest parties ever, but it's going to be in a very blue area. I thought that was a very unique stat when I read that today.
Well, hopefully the people who are attending can make up for all those that don't want to celebrate, because it's going to be a great occasion. I'm looking forward to watching it. What do you make about Michelle Obama? She's previously accused Donald Trump of endangering her family's safety with his rhetoric, and now she's claiming that she's not going to be attending the inauguration. Her husband, Barack Obama, will be going. Why doesn't she want to go?
I don't know. And then she also did not want to see President Trump at Jimmy Carter's funeral. I don't understand why she is so afraid, because everybody also saw the clips where Barack and Donald Trump were talking and they were being friendly and laughing. So I really don't understand why she's trying to run away from Donald Trump like he's the big bad boogeyman. And she tries to play like she's a victim, like Donald Trump would ever want anything to happen to her family. That's just so not the case when it comes to Donald Trump. And if anybody wants somebody to get hurt, it's those people that cheered on the shooter when Donald Trump was almost assassinated. So when it comes to Michelle Obama, she's running away from something that eventually she's going to have to engage with. And I think that she should just be a first lady, an ex-first lady, and have some decorum and some respect. And even though she doesn't like it, that's just part of the responsibility that she has for being such an influential person. Sometimes you just have to put on a good face and pretend like you like it. But her running away from Trump, it shows that she's kind of cowardly, in my opinion.
I agree. She's happy to lecture people and say when they go low, you go high. But actually, when push comes to shove, she just can't even attend the inauguration. Look, the Senate confirmation hearings are underway, but three of Trump's cabinet picks, Kristi Noem, Doug Burgum and Tulsi Gabbard, have had their confirmation hearings postponed due to paperwork issues, and they're blaming FBI background check delays. What's going on here?
Oh, you know what's going on here. They want to do anything they can to stop Donald Trump from confirming any of his picks. And so you look at what they did to, Pete Hegseth today, RFK, that nobody wants RFK confirmed. Even Mike Pence, the former vice president, is standing up against RFK getting confirmed. So it's just another deep state attack, and they're probably going to be able to, kick the can down the road. But eventually, these people are going to have to get confirmed, and I hope that Donald Trump can make that happen, and these people just don't hold it up forever. But the fact that Mike Pence said that he doesn't want RFK, I thought that was a pretty strong statement from the deep state.
Pete Hegseth endured fierce Democratic grilling yesterday, but I think he emerged pretty unscathed, especially from those hysterical moments from the Democrats. Here's Elizabeth Warren trying to grill Pete Hegseth.
In other words, you're quite sure that every general who serves should not go directly into the defense industry for 10 years. But you're not willing to make that same pledge?
I'm not a general, Senator.
Look, I watched a lot of that yesterday, and I think Pete Hegseth did a pretty good job. He remained very calm, his temperament was under control, and the Democrats really made a fool of themselves.
Oh, 100%. They attacked his wife. They said that he was basically an alcoholic, and he handled it great. And then some of the people tried to accuse him of being a misogynist when he was just stating a fact that there are different requirements for physical activities when it comes to training for the military. A woman doesn't have to lift as much, and their threshold is much lower. And he was just stating an objective fact, and they tried to paint him out to be like he's some evil misogynist. It's just ludicrous. And Pete Hegseth handled it perfectly. His temperament was great. He didn't get flustered, and I would have gotten flustered. You probably would have gotten flustered. Most people would have really gotten flustered, especially if it would have attacked my wife and gone after me personally, like some of the insinuations that they made. He did a great job. I'd give him an A+ if I was grading him.
Finally, President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration portrait has been unveiled. Trump's portrait is being compared to his mugshot from August 2023 when he had to go to Fulton County Jail in Atlanta, Georgia. There is that picture. Look, what do you make of the portrait?
It's great. It's intimidating. It's dominating. It looks like the guy that wrote the book, Art of the Deal. If they had to remake Art of the Deal and give it a new cover, they should put that picture. I mean, that is a person that I do not want to be negotiating against if I'm sitting at a table. So, I love it. And it shows that he is a dominant human being. People don't want to admit that sometimes. They don't want to admit that Trump is not dominant. He is. So the haters can hate, but that picture says a lot. And it says that, listen, he means business when it comes to geopolitical relations with the rest of the world.
Yes, he does. And we are seeing the impact of that already. Alex Stein, it is so great to speak with you. Thanks so much for joining us on Power Hour.
Always a pleasure. Thank you for having me.